That's how we all die.
She knows exactly what she's doing. No, I'm saying Amber, she does. She's not a fool. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Now, pick them up and bring them through. We get a car and then take it to the apartment. And I've asked them, would she go and see her shrink? She said she would. And as soon as he's calm, and as soon as David has given his medication and he gets himself sorted out, then maybe later on in a week, in 2 days, in 7, whatever David tells us, then maybe then they should talk. But she keeps obviously doing the usual thing of breaking down in tears, saying, shall I go, shall I go, shall I go? And what I know, yes, shall I leave, shall I stay here and wait? And I just said, look, I'll be honest with you, they don't want me to see him because at the moment that's the problem. And at least she's listening, but every 5 minutes she bursts into tears. Now, what I will say to you is that I know Nathan's working on it. I've just spoken to Stephen. They're at the hospital waiting for the hand surgeon to come in to try and get fixed on his finger. So that's okay, alright? Alright.
Upstairs, very packed, I come back and cook and went up. Empty bags. One had a little bit of crush. He used to be crushed up a little bit. The other one was okay. Let me see the cocaine on top of Xanax, Adderall, ecstasy, and this. I hate that he hates me. I hate that I'm the one that has to go, I hate that I'm the element that really sets it off. I hate that Jerry, I don't want to do that. I really hate it. Jerry,
I don't believe that. That's my own question. I don't believe that for a second.
No, I was trying to make that a very calm, rational point. I was talking to him. It's hard to tell something. It's hard to tell sometimes. Before he goes off to get it. And I was trying to talk to him irrationally and stuff, and then of course it just came off. When we got to that point where we're in the same office. I feel so stupid, Jerry. I go over here and ship things. I feel so stupid. I'm really lost.
I'm telling you my time as best as I can.
Oh,
There is so much of suicide.
It's all part of my job, it's all part of the job. It's all part of the job. No, I said you do the job, I'm saying, throw this in the garage.
I reckon we roll this up.
Yeah.
And you probably just got it into your base.
I'll roll this up and put tape on.
Jerry? Since we don't have the hotel yet,
Go on, love.
So there you have it. I hope you have a better understanding of what actually happened. What I find to be interesting, among many other things, is, again, how nobody, including Amber, is talking about the severe injuries she now claims she received. Nobody is talking about a busted lip, or a broken nose, or slashes all over her body and feet and legs and arms. It's almost like those injuries didn't exist. You would think if she was injured, like she now claims, somebody would be getting her medical attention as well, but instead it's Johnny who ended up in the hospital due to his injuries, while everyone else worked to get her home peacefully in hopes she wouldn't explode again along the way. It's also interesting how much her story and stories have evolved and changed and contradicted themselves, from Johnny punching a wall and hurting his hand to this taking place over a 3-day stretch now when it really happened on one day, and even Johnny taking 10 ecstasy tablets in a span of 2 hours, and now she claims he took 8 overnight. And then there's the outright lies being told in Virginia and UK courts by Amber and the Sun, stating this occurred on March 4th when it was really March 8th, and on top of that, claiming this happened at night when it actually happened during the AM hours. So much counter evidence has been stacking up against them. Not to mention, as evidence has come to light that has shown that she was the aggressor and the one who assaulted him, causing him a severe injury, throwing her entire claims into question, she is now adding sexual violence to her allegations. In my opinion, it's very clear with all the evidence that has come out over the past few months that Amber Heard is not being truthful about what happened during her relationship with Johnny Depp. We've heard her admit to abusing Johnny, mocking him, saying she can't be rationalized or reasoned with, and that she gets so mad she loses it. And, if you recall, Ben King, who was tasked with flying Amber back to drop her off to her support system, and so she could see her shrink and to make sure that she didn't kick off or try to manipulate him, was asked twice on the flight back by Amber, "Have you ever been so angry with someone that you just lost it?" Seemingly already trying to get him to justify her violent actions. And now we have the immediate aftermath of an incident, a crime scene that I believe points to more lies from her, including the amount of covering up it took to keep her violent episodes hidden and the lengths it took to keep her calm. I think that she, as she would describe it, got so mad she lost it. I think she cut off the end of Johnny's finger just 1 month into their marriage, by the way, and then was scrambling to place any sort of blame on him while also screaming and crying because she knew she had finally done something that might open his eyes and she might actually lose him. And she secretly recorded the whole thing and submitted it along with a much less accurate transcript back in 2016 during her initial claims. Why? I don't know. Maybe she was hoping that she could just cherry pick from it and use the inaccurate transcript to apply more public pressure to Johnny at the time. Even though the audio paints a much different picture, she was panicking, knowing her actions could cost her everything she believed she worked so hard to make happen. I believe she committed a crime, a violent assault, and yet wanted to stay there to be with this man who she claims had just violently, physically, and sexually assaulted her, to take care of him while he healed from his injuries, and that she was the only one who could. There's so much about her ever-changing stories that just wasn't adding up, and now I truly believe I understand why. It seems to me that this has always been a case of flipping the script, and so many people bought her version of the events at first. But I'm thankful the truth continues to take giant leaps forward. It makes me wonder how much longer the Sun plans to stand behind her in the face of these truths. Thanks for sticking around, everyone. My next video hopefully won't take as long to produce. This one was one heck of an undertaking. Next, I plan to begin a long exposure of Amber's key witness, Raquel Pennington, and the massive lies I believe she has told. Once I've gone over them in detail, I'll begin to work on videos about others who I believe have aided Amber in her hoax.
A special thank you again to Les from Spiritually Empowered Coaching for providing the voiceover for all the female statements. I hope you find this series informative, and here we go.
John Christopher Depp II and News Group Newspapers, Dan Wooten. This is the second witness statement of Kate James. I, Kate James of West Hollywood, will say as follows. I work as a personal assistant to high-profile people in the entertainment industry. I have been working in that capacity in Los Angeles for approximately 20 years. I worked for Amber Heard from around March 2012 until February 2015. When I was 26 years old and traveling in Brazil, I was violently by an unknown male, having been woken by the perpetrator while sleeping alone in my dwelling. The ordeal went on for 5 to 6 hours, and I narrowly escaped with my life. This torturous experience of such extreme violence has haunted me ever since and permanently changed the trajectory of my life to this day. Over the years, I have shared this incident with many close friends, family, and therapists. In 2012, Miss Heard became aware of what happened to me as I had talked about it with a friend of hers at her apartment. Miss Heard then summoned me to her office where we sat on her couch and she questioned me about it. She was curious as how I coped with it on a daily basis, and she suggested I buy a gun. I was shocked at that suggestion, as I would not consider having a gun in my home with a small child around. I responded that I chose to see myself as a survivor and not a victim, and that's how I found my own way to cope. On June 25th, 2020, I received documents pertaining to my involvement on behalf of the claimant in this case. As I perused the documents, much to my utter shock and dismay, I discovered that Miss Heard had in fact stolen my violent conversation with her and twisted it into her own story to benefit herself. This, of course, caused me extreme distress and outrage that she would dare to attempt to use the most harrowing experience of my life as her own narrative. I believe that the facts stated in this witness statement are true. I understand the proceedings for contempt of court may be brought against anyone who makes or causes to be made a false statement in document verified by a statement of truth without an honest belief in its truth.
I recently said I was about to start branching out and pointing out inconsistencies and lies told by key players and witnesses in what is clearly looking more and more like an elaborate hoax against Johnny Depp by Amber Heard and her friends like Raquel Pennington and others. The Daily Mail recently wrote an article about a 911 call made on the night of May 21st, 2016. The night Amber Heard claimed Johnny Depp through a phone, striking her face with great force, followed with pulling her hair and hitting her repeatedly. Let's take a listen.
Saturday, May 21, 2016, 20:27 and 27 seconds.
911 emergency, operator 278.
Hi, I need to report an assault right now happening at 849 Broadway at the Eastern Building in Penthouse 3.
27 and 37 seconds.
Okay, are you there right now, ma'am?
No, I'm downstairs.
Okay, and I'm sorry, you said 840, was it North or South Broadway?
47 seconds.
I don't know, it's Eastern Building, downtown LA.
27 and 57 seconds.
Because it's coming up in different areas. We have to be sure.
20,
somebody was being physically assaulted?
Yeah.
7 seconds.
Who? A woman.
Who was hurting her?
A man.
Is that her boyfriend?
A man. That's all I know.
17 seconds.
Did you witness it?
No, I happen to know that it's happening,
Saturday,
and I just need to
May
remain anonymous.
20,
Okay, you can remain anonymous, ma'am, but I have to be certain what's going on. How do you know this is going on, though?
She told me.
Okay, so this is a friend of yours?
Yes.
Okay, so what did she say, that this guy was assaulted her or hit her?
Physically assaulting her, yes.
Okay, but this isn't a boyfriend or anything like that?
Yes, it could be,
28 and
okay, is it her boyfriend, yes or no?
Seconds.
Yes.
Okay. All right, hold on. Are you between 8th and 9th Street in downtown?
Okay, yes, exactly.
Okay, and I'm sorry, what was the suite number?
Penthouse 3.
Penthouse 3, okay. And you want us to be anonymous, right?
Yes, and 07 seconds.
And your friend, did she relay this information to you via text, or were you talking to her?
29 and 17 seconds.
What's her name?
May 20.
Her name, Amber.
2016.
That's all I can tell you. I have to go.
And
okay, well, if that's all we have, and we can't talk to her, there's not much we can do. We'll send
what do you mean send somebody up, please?
I'm going to send someone up, ma'am, but, you know, if we get up there and she denies it or doesn't want to talk to us. Okay, just so you know, okay? So we're coming out to 840 Broadway, Penthouse 3, okay?
849.
Interesting, isn't it? Normally, something of this magnitude would go a long way in furthering the truth of someone's claims. However, in this case, I feel it does the exact opposite. Allow me to explain. I'm going to ask and hopefully answer several questions. Questions like, who made this call? Why did they? Why is it only now being talked about? We'll ponder the apparent different interpretations of the word immediately, and you'll see some new deposition footage proving how lying under oath comes easy to some people. There are a number of lies to potentially uncover and dig into here. Like, who made this call? Well, we can start with who didn't. I'll tell it right. If you recall, Io was in New York on the night of May 21st on the phone with Amber, who was in LA when she alleged Johnny threw the phone that hit her in the face. Amber and Io both testified that during the alleged assault, Amber yelled for Io to call 911 just before their call disconnected. Io would then testify in his declaration and in an article he pinned on the Refinery 29 that he called 911 to save Amber's life and decided to do so in a split second. On Twitter, Io would double down that the next call he made immediately after the phone disconnected with Amber was to 911. So here's our first snag. As many of you may know, I've made a number of videos using facts, evidence, testimony, and analysis breaking down lies and inconsistencies in the testimony and statements given by Amber and her witnesses, like but not limited to Io and Raquel. I've never tagged Io on social media, nor do I encourage others to do so. However, recently, since Amber's audio confessions of being abusive have been made public, he posted to his Instagram citing my Twitter page and YouTube channel, calling me an idiot, sick, saying I and others like me have a mental illness and that I'm probably on the payroll. He also made his way over to Twitter to openly threaten me with a lawsuit, then soon after found his way to my DMs to send me a long message further threatening me, but also offering up some rather enlightening information. Coming from someone who, with his articles and outspoken nature on social media platforms, has actively campaigned to convince the world that Johnny Depp is an abuser, I find it odd that now he's saying something like he doesn't even know the ins and outs of the situation, and that we should let this nasty mess be between them, and that he prays that whatever the truth is, that it comes out and the right person gets their due. So he spent nearly 4 years trying to convince the world and anyone who would listen that he knew exactly who the abuser was, insulting anyone who questioned the contradictions in Amber's story, and even shaming witnesses who lived in the building who have since testified to what they saw, but now, well, he just doesn't know. He would continue to tell me to take down my content to make things right, that the lawyers have told him not to talk to me, but if I didn't want to be an honorable person, I'd be hit with a cease and desist and a slander suit before wrapping things up by telling me to fight for what I believe in, but don't take out good people in the process. So, I'm going to take his advice and keep fighting for what I believe in. So here's the snag I mentioned moments ago. Io testified and has repeatedly stated that he called 911 in the split second immediately after the call to Amber disconnected. He was kind enough to provide portions of phone records and his 911 call. The problem is, these, along with other witness testimony, show this to be a lie. Let's start with the witness testimony that disproves this. Raquel Pennington testified that on the night of May 21st, she received a text from Amber asking her to come over at 8:06 p.m. Upon receiving the text, Raquel testified she went immediately over. She says that it took her less than a minute to retrieve a key and enter Penthouse 3 where Johnny and Amber were, placing Raquel in Penthouse 3 around 8:07. According to all three testimonies, the alleged assault and the cry for Io to call 911 and the phone disconnecting occurred sometime after the text to Raquel but before she entered the penthouse. This means in order for that to be truthful testimony, Io's immediate split-second 911 call to save Amber's life would have had to have occurred at or around 8:06 to 8:07, but according to his records, he would not call 911 for another 10 minutes. I don't know about you, but that just doesn't feel very immediate. For example, if someone broke into my house and stabbed me, and my buddy said, "Man, you need to get to the hospital immediately," I don't think the right response would be for me to say, "Absolutely, just let me finish the last 10 minutes of the office." Unless, of course, Io is saying that Raquel is lying about the time she testified to have entered the penthouse, or maybe both are lying. At this point, almost nothing would surprise me. There's also the issue with Io saying that he called the police right after the call with Amber disconnected. Aside from the time inconsistency, we know that statement isn't true either. According to his own records, you can see the 911 call at 3:16 a.m. GMT, which logs 911 calls. That time, of course, translates to 11:16 p.m. Eastern Time and 8:16 Pacific. But as you can see, it wasn't the first call Io made after the call disconnected. Before that, he called Amber twice and Raquel once. Now let's move on to the second mystery 911 call. Weird thing about this one is, nobody has testified that it happened at all. That's odd, isn't it? Nobody claimed it or even mentioned it, as if they didn't want anyone to know it occurred. In fact, Io, Amber, and Raquel testified that only Io called 911 that night. So that's 3 lies under oath right there. Also worth noting is that even though Io's 911 call was the only one any of them testified to have occurred that night, it was instead this mysterious 911 call that was submitted as proof to receive the temporary restraining order days later. Now, why use the mystery call, but not Io's? More on that in a bit. Part of Io's tweets about the topic included a first name for this mystery caller, Lauren. He claimed that once he called 911, he was afraid that by calling from New York, the police might drag their feet. He didn't call Liz Mars, a friend of Amber's who was also there that night, or Josh Drew, Raquel's then fiancé who lived with her rent-free in Johnny's Penthouse 1. No, he called Lauren. So who is Lauren? Well, it didn't take much digging to find the top candidate, and it always helps when you have so many smart cookies hanging out on Twitter, so believe me when I say this ain't all me. Lauren Shapiro, a good friend of I.O., shot to the top of the list. She is from San Francisco, where a number I.O. called is located. Another clear giveaway is that she has been subpoenaed in this case. Note, on her subpoena she is represented by Anya Goldstein, the same Amber-funded attorney provided to other witnesses on her side of the case. If it's safe to assume I.O. is naming Lauren Shapiro as the mystery caller, then we have more lies being added to the pile. Let's see how many. For the record, I don't believe the caller is Lauren, but we'll get to that. The first lie we run into, if the caller is indeed Lauren, are the lies being told to the 911 operator. Again, if it's Lauren, she lied about who gave her the information, saying it was Amber who told her over the phone when we're being told it was I.O. who relayed the information. There's also the difference in information given between the 911 calls. I.O.'s not-so-immediate first call gave specific details like it was her husband and that she was hit in the face with a phone. Details that were clearly verbalized by Amber, which I still find odd, by the way, that after she claimed Johnny very intentionally threw a phone directly at her face, she still felt the need to narrate and yell something along the lines of, "I've been hit in the face with a phone," but I digress. But the biggest lie told to the 911 operator, if this is Lauren, is that she said she was in the Eastern Columbia building where the alleged assault took place. Let's figure that one out. We know the call was made at 8:27 p.m. Where was Lauren at 8:27 p.m. on this night? She was hanging with friends at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery for a screening of Silence of the Lambs, where doors opened at 6:45 for the 8:30 screening. And we know she was already settled in, closely surrounded by hundreds of other people well before the screening began. We know this because this is a graph of sunrise and sunset in Los Angeles on May 21st, 2016. As you can see, while it plays through the day, sunset was at 7:52, with complete darkness easily before 8:08 p.m. And here we see Lauren and friends already set up in the crowd well before sunset. So why don't we hear the crowd, the friends, the movie? Why lie to a 911 operator about your proximity to the alleged assault, saying that you were downstairs in the building at the time? This leads me right into who I truly believe this mystery caller is, Raquel Pennington. Let's start with a few audible similarities, like these.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah.
Amber, Amber's Amber.
Amber.
A woman.
A woman.
Then there's the information that the caller was in the building, which we know Raquel was. Assuming it's Raquel means that she lied, claiming Amber told her over the phone she was being assaulted and not that she was there in person with Amber during or shortly after. You see, Raquel testified that after the alleged assault and after Johnny stormed out of Penthouse 3, Amber told her that she thinks I.O. called the cops because she yelled for him to do so. Raquel told Amber she would verify what I.O. did. This actually proves another lie told by Amber when she texted Johnny a few days later, telling him she didn't know why the cops came. But if she told Raquel that I.O. called the cops and Raquel verified that the cops were on the way, well, that makes it a lie, doesn't it? She also claimed that's the only reason she called her divorce attorney that night for guidance. Raquel testified she didn't remember if she called I.O. or vice versa, but according to I.O.'s records, he called I.O. and just 3 minutes before the second mystery 911 call was made. There was no mention in this conversation about asking someone else to call 911. That's why Raquel had to pretend to be someone else and remain anonymous. If everyone found out she knew I.O. already called 911 but then still called 911 herself, well, it just adds more fuel to the hoax fire, in my opinion. And if I.O. was concerned that his call wasn't going to get the police there quick enough, why was that not discussed during this conversation with Raquel, giving someone there at the scene the opportunity to call? Well, I think that's exactly what this phone call did. You see, Amber testified she doesn't really remember when she called her lawyer, Samantha Spector, that night. Was it before the police arrived? After? Who knows? Not to ignore how odd it is that she had her divorce attorney on speed dial so soon after the alleged assault, but the fact remains she was called for guidance that night. According to multiple testimonies and a statement from an attorney from Depp, Adam Waldman, phone calls were also made to Amber's publicist, Jody Gottlieb, and her makeup artist, Melanie Iglesias. I'm going to describe a potential scenario and back it up with testimony and facts. After Johnny left Penthouse 3, Amber, Raquel, and Josh all gathered in Penthouse 1. Amber had just been told Johnny wanted a divorce, and she was angry and panicking. She gets on the phone with Samantha Spector, who guided her and her friends through what needed to happen next in order to get the upper hand in the impending divorce. Amber explained I.O. was calling the police, but with what details? Details are hard to fake. The very specific injury of getting hit in the face with a phone when you in fact did not get hit in the face with a phone is difficult to fake. especially when time is of the essence. I.O. had called and told Raquel that he told the 911 operator that very detail, and that the police were on the way. From here, Raquel was instructed, likely by Amber with the guidance of her lawyer, to call in an attempt to undo the details given by I.O. and keep it vague and simple. This is why the caller, who I believe is Raquel, doesn't seem urgent, like she's saving a life, but rather annoyed that she has to cover up I.O.'s potential mistake by saying she would like to report an assault that's happening. Allow me to sidestep and add some context to this seeming resentment between Raquel and I.O. There was definitely some bad blood, and it goes all the way back to Amber and Johnny's wedding ceremony on Johnny's private island in February of 2015. Several of Amber's friends and a few of Johnny's spent the weekend together on the island as they prepared for the wedding. According to the testimony of one of those friends of Johnny, Josh Richmond, Amber, her sister, and her friends spent much of the weekend inebriated and drugged out. He testified that the day before the wedding, I.O. physically assaulted Raquel during an argument essentially over who was going to be the lead planner for Amber. After I.O. beat up Raquel, he was at the bar describing how Raquel was hysterical about the planning and how she was crying and carrying on, and he was laughing and gloating about assaulting her. As a result, I.O. was given the nickname I Slap Rocky, based on the rapper A$AP Rocky. I.O. seemed proud of the new nickname and found it hilarious, as many of the wedding guests, including his girlfriend, would refer to him as I Slap Rocky for the rest of the weekend. This pride about physically assaulting someone you care about reminds me of an article I read where the writer said, "No person ever should suffer violence at the hands of a person they love," adding, "We say domestic violence is bad. We condemn it, but as a culture, we create the most fertile breeding ground for it to thrive." If only I could remember the author of it. Oh yeah, it was I.O. in his Refinery 29 article where he claimed Johnny was the abuser and the world shouldn't be silent about it. This wasn't the only time I.O. expressed his dislike and resentment towards Raquel and the ongoing competition as to who would be Amber's top caregiver. While on the phone with Amber's lawyer, the group was not only advised on what to do about the police, but also each were instructed to write down what they said happened, so this could later be applied to potential declarations. This writing was something Raquel claimed she likely still had when she sat for the first half of her deposition in June 2016. But then, shucks, wouldn't you know it, couldn't find it to show them when she came back for the second half of her deposition in July. Of all the darn luck. Even though Amber wanted to make sure the police were on their way, and I.O., the second caller who I believe is Raquel, and the rest of the group insisted the police come, Amber still declined to give a statement per advice of her counsel. All that was needed to apply pressure and increase the chances of getting a DVRO was to get the police to arrive in response to a report of physical assault. The police coming wasn't a surprise. It was expected, and it was leverage. Nobody was shocked they arrived. Josh Drew was actually waiting in the hall to greet them and tell them it's all under control and send them on their way without seeing Amber because, remember, details are hard to fake, but at least they could say that the police had to show up because of assault. When they insisted on seeing Amber, Josh went into Penthouse 1, leaving the police officers outside. The officers could hear talking going on behind the door. They knocked multiple times and insisted that Amber come out. They weren't going away. Amber, while on the phone with her lawyer, was told she would have to talk to them, but was told to not give a statement, again because details.
And then we responded to a door in the hallway, and I knocked and was met by a male.
Were you in the hallway?
Yes, I was in the hallway.
Okay. And during that time period, from exiting the elevator through to knocking on the door, was there anything in the hallway that was unusual to you?
Not that I observed, no.
And upon knocking on the door, what happened next?
A male opened the door. I don't remember the exact questions and conversation we had, but I remember asking if they called for help, and he said that it was the neighbor and that she was inside of his house apartment with his girlfriend. And I asked him if they could step out, and he told me to wait, and he shut the door. And we waited. We waited for them to exit. I don't remember how much time passed by, and they came out, and that's when we were met with his girlfriend and who I know now as Miss Heard in the hallway.
And up until that point in time, did you hear anything that led you to believe that a crime had been committed?
I did not.
Up until that point in time, did you see anything that made you believe that a crime had been committed?
I did not.
Up until that point in time, did you hear anything that made you believe that there had been an act of domestic violence there?
I did not.
Up until that point in time, did you see anything that made you believe that there had been an act of domestic violence there?
I did not.
And at that time, did you notice any injuries on Ms. Heard?
I did not.
Okay. Were you looking to see if she had any injuries at that time?
Yes, I was.
And so you were looking to see if Ms. Heard had any injuries, and you determined that she did not. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Would you agree it's a red mark on her face?
Yeah, from what I saw was red from her crying. There was no red marks from any other thing. It was consistent with her crying.
You would say that doesn't evidence an injury?
No,
Why not?
because I don't see an injury.
Do you recognize the business card?
Yes.
And tell me what you can recall of that.
Well, that's my handwriting, and those are our LAPD business cards.
All right. The next thing on there is refused report. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Was it your understanding that Ms. Heard did not want to press charges?
She spoke with my partner, and that's what my partner advised me.
Okay. Were you ever in the room when Ms. Heard either, quote, refused report or refused to press charges?
I believe we offered her one final chance before we gave her the business card if she needed medical treatment or a report, and she declined at that time, and that's when we issued this business card.
Do you recognize the person in this?
Yeah, that's me and Officer Diener.
I'm going to show you now the video cam footage. I've got the two from yours and from Officer Diener, so I'm going to go through and show those to you.
Coffee's hot. Burning up. Word round to penthouse 3. Penthouse. Be advised, we're stepping out onto the penthouse floor.
Traffic collision credit incident 5543192. 825 3rd Street, front of the location, suspect is now black 28 538, just built right straight jacket. Another truck over the green ball back. Incident 5556, 1263. Suspect is no longer armed.
Hello. Officers. How you doing? Doing all right. You guys had somebody come out here earlier already? Yes, we did. Okay.
I can't remember their names offhand. We have the card inside.
Cyan, maybe? Yeah, we got another call. I don't know if it's related to the same call from earlier or if somebody called again.
Probably.
We just need to check. One of you guys know someone in New York or something?
Yeah, she probably called twice.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just talk to your wife and just make sure.
Oh, it's not my wife.
Okay.
Different conversation.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, whoever it is, when you step out, you just got to check on and make sure they're all good.
I'll go get the business card from the cops.
Yeah, I don't know. Just because we got another call and we came again, we still got to make sure.
Give me 1 second. Back up. Please, back up.
Can we just, we'll just come in and just check. We just need to make sure everybody in here is okay, and then we...
I called twice. Yeah.
I don't know if she called twice or whoever called, but we just got another notification. So
It must have been a mistake.
we just need to come in and make sure that everybody's okay.
Yeah,
They're all good. Nobody else is in here.
No.
Okay.
The other officers came by and checked the apartment and the other apartment as well.
Yeah. Okay.
It must have been like a double call.
Okay. Who's Amber? You? Okay. And Johnny?
Is definitely not here.
He's not here? Okay.
Left probably like 2 hours ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, cool. Everything's all good then?
Now it's good.
Alright.
Thank you.
Well, if you guys need anything else, just call us back.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, have a good night.
Thank you, officers.
Yep, thank you. Have a good night.
Talking hot.
Burn it up.
We're in route penthouse 3.
Come out here earlier?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
I can't remember the names offhand. The card is
Science, maybe? Yeah, we got another call. I don't know if it's related to the same call from earlier or if somebody called again.
probably.
We just need to check. One of you guys know someone in New York or something?
Yeah, she probably called twice.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just talk to your wife just to make sure.
Oh, it's not my wife.
Okay.
Different conversation.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, whoever it is, stuff out, you gotta get on, make sure you're all good.
I'll go get the business card from the cops.
Yeah, I don't know, just because we got another call and we came again, we still gotta make sure.
Give me 1 second.
Back up.
Please, back up.
We'll just come in and just check. We need to make sure everybody in here is I don't know if she got
It must have been like a double call.
Okay. Who's Amber? You? Okay. And Johnny?
Is definitely not here.
He's not here? Okay.
Left probably like 2 hours ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, cool. Everything's all good then?
Now it's good.
Alright.
Thank you.
Well, if you guys need anything else, just call us back. Have a good night. I don't know if it's related to the same call from earlier or if somebody called again.
Probably.
We just need to check. One of you guys know someone in New York or something?
Yeah, she probably called twice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, would you say, and I'll represent this as Josh Drew, and he's already provided testimony. Would you say that Josh Drew was discouraging you from even coming into the apartment or seeing Amber Heard?
Yes.
What perception did you have about the level of cooperation of these 4 individuals with your answering this call?
Pretty low level of cooperation.
Details. The hope was to use the mere fact that the police came to further their attempts at getting a DVRO, but when the DVRO was applied for, there was no mention that the police came. Why? Well, that's because the domestic violence trained police officers saw no evidence of a crime nor any injuries to Amber and have since testified to that. And that would have thrown a wrench into their plans to get the DVRO, $50,000 a month, and Johnny's penthouses they lived in. They needed something official, but not too detailed, and certainly not something that could contradict their claims, and they knew exactly where to get it. That's why they used the second call to 911 and not IO's as their proof that an assault was reported and responded to that night. It was vague enough, had the caller making sure to use the blanket term physically assaulted, and had the caller verifying that the operator would indeed send someone up. A call that, to this day, nobody has testified to even existing. Not IO, not Amber, and not Raquel. Each of them only testifying that IO called 911, a lie under oath that seemed collectively calculated. And if you're wondering how someone could so easily lie under oath, here's a clip of Raquel describing how her declaration for Amber came to be, lying about how she wrote every word of it, flip-flopping between emailing back and forth with Amber's lawyers about it or dictating it for them in person, only to eventually have Amber's lawyer, not her own, step in to stop the string of lies coming from her.
When you were preparing a declaration in this case, which you signed, did you talk to any other person about the content of the declaration?
I told Joe and Sam what I was going to declare, which was on that legal form that had to be filled out. So those two people knew that I was going to declare this. My understanding was they had to file it because they are the lawyers. So they knew my declaration. I was in no way instructed. I wrote down everything from my original writing of the night that it happened.
Very good. When you informed Joe and Sam about what you had written down, how did you do that?
Via email.
Okay. So you sent a series of emails back and forth to Joe and Sam, correct?
No.
Who did you send the emails to?
I signed my document and sent it straight to Sam.
Okay, Raquel, we really need to get to the truth here, and I want to do this as clearly and succinctly as possible.
Absolutely.
You just said that you were in communication with Joe and Sam at some point about your declaration, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When was the first time you were in communication with Joe or Sam?
The first time I was in communication with Sam was when I met her at Jody's home.
Okay. Was anything about the declaration discussed?
No.
When was the first time you communicated with Sam about the declaration?
I believe it was Thursday, the Thursday before the court filing.
Okay, tell me what happened.
I wrote down my declaration to them. We were at Joe's office, and I wrote it all down, gave it over to them.
Okay, Joe was there?
Joe was there.
Sam was there?
Sam was there.
You communicated with them, correct?
Yes.
You had written some things on a piece of paper yourself prior to that date?
Yes.
Okay. You discussed with them how those things you had written down would get into your declaration, correct?
Yes.
They then offered to draft the declaration, correct? They prepared the declaration for you?
They showed me the format that you have to write it in, yes.
Okay. When you say they showed you the format, had they drafted, had they taken what you wrote down prior and turned it into a draft?
No.
You drafted the document you filed with the court?
I verbally drafted every word.
So you dictated that to somebody?
Yes.
And you dictated to somebody, I, Raquel Rose Pennington, declare as follows?
Blair,
No.
I prepared it. I mean,
Okay.
I'm just harassing her.
I mean, for the record, I'm by no means harassing
Well, your
her.
voice got very loud.
I'm
so.
asking her for truthful answers, and I don't appear to be getting them.
Guys and gals, I want to close out by saying the truth isn't difficult. It shouldn't muddy the waters or raise more questions. If told in its entirety from the beginning, the truth should make things abundantly clear. That is, of course, if the truth is on your side. But I don't think clarity is what was wanted here. Things like the police showing up and what they saw or didn't see after investigating the scene, or the fact that there was a second mystery call to 911 didn't help their case, or the fact that there were audio tapes of Amber confessing to abusing Johnny, so they just left those pesky little details out. We were shown bits and pieces cobbled together in the hopes people would buy into it and not ask any more questions, because shame on you for doing so. They say the truth will set you free. But in this case, it appears that the truth is causing the walls to close in little by little.
Adam Waldman, who was previously on Johnny's legal team, tweeted after the news was announced, and the tweet reads, 12/15/15 allegation. I had bruised ribs, bruises all over my body, bruises on my forearms from trying to defend the blows. I had 2 black eyes, I had a broken nose, I had a broken lip. Justice Nichols, I believe her. UK Appeals Court, we believe him. But oops, photo shoot. Tweet also included 2 photos of Amber posing on the beach. Amber responded to the tweet and said, yes, Mr. Waldman, I may be wearing makeup on this occasion, but on every occasion you will still be sure.